Hi, I'm David Wilkinson and I'm the author of The Ambiguity Advantage and also the designer of the Masters of Ambiguity program. In this short video I'm going to be having a look at what the difference is between ambiguity and uncertainty. So what is the difference between ambiguity and uncertainty? So let's first look at ambiguity, and here's some very famous examples. An example here is of an ambiguous picture. So if you put your focus on the left of the picture where the whiskers seem to be, it seems to be a rabbit, and if you move your focus over to the right of the picture that were the rabbit's ears, now it starts to take on the image of a slightly deranged bird, and this is an ambiguous picture. So what is it? Here's a similarly ambiguous picture, and you'll see in the arch the head of an old man, but when you start to look a bit closer and start to focus on the old man's ears, or his ear, and his eye, you start to notice some figures popping out of an old man and a young woman with a baby. But it's not just visual ambiguities, we also get linguistic ambiguities, and this is a famous one. Young girls wanted for pickling and bottling. Does that mean that these young girls are wanted to be pickled and bottled, or they're going to be pickling and bottling things? And here's an example that graced the social media, things like Facebook recently. So ambiguity actually goes beyond just cute pictures and illusions, however. We find ambiguity and uncertainty is a contributory factor in many areas of our life. For example, when we're driving, we may think that we're doing one speed, so the data from our own senses is suggesting that we're doing one speed, and yet when we start to have a look at our instruments, it tells us something different. And the question is, which one's correct? Now, do you follow your instinct, or do you follow the instruments? And what if you suspect the instruments might not be working correctly? And what would tell you that? The point here is that ambiguity leads to uncertainty. Uncertainty and confusion as similar things is that the reactions we have to things like ambiguity. So as you can see here, ambiguity is anything that can be interpreted in more than one way. And uncertainty is the reaction to that. It's the doubt and the confusion that's caused as a result of things like ambiguity. However, other things can create uncertainty, like a complete lack of data, for example, or incomplete data, or a dilemma, like should I do this or that, where some choices aren't clear, for example. There are a couple of problems with uncertainty, and the first one is our emotional reaction and the knock-on effect that it has with our cognitions, or our ability to be able to think, solve problems and act. And secondly, and this might sound strange, you have to know that you're uncertain to be able to do anything about it. Quite often we find that people don't realise that there is an ambiguity or uncertainty present, and they blithely carry on thinking things are okay and are certain until things go badly wrong. Now, when we examine things like air accidents, for example, we find a large percentage of cases of pilot error actually occur because pilots didn't see the ambiguities or uncertainties, and they didn't know how to deal with those uncertainties even if they did see them. And it's not just in things like air crashes. We see the same patterns emerging where businesses or projects fail because the uncertainty created a form of paralysis, or they didn't even notice the ambiguities and uncertainty in time, and they didn't know how to respond to them in any case. Like happened in the famous case of Kodak, who were brought down by the uncertainty created for their film business by a technology they actually invented, the digital camera. Similarly, Polaroid failed to notice the signs of change, which were the signs of uncertainty in their market. And of course, the mass failure of banks and governments to fail to notice the ambiguities of the financial systems and market pre-2008 Indeed, many of these ambiguities and uncertainties still exist today. Now, the point of the Masters of Ambiguity program is to show people exactly how to notice these kinds of signals and exactly what you can do about them. I'm David Wilkinson, the author of The Ambiguity Advantage and the designer of the Masters of Ambiguity program, and this is a Centre I production.